This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Union Cabinet decisions. The participants are T.R. Ramachandran, political analyst, and Shishir Sinha, journalist.
The Union Cabinet met under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi and took several important decisions. One of the major decisions is about the monetization of asset by NHAI, that's the National Highway Authority of India. How do you see this decision, sir?
Well, I think it's a very important decision taken because I think the entire construction work was being very badly affected all over the country. And keeping that in mind and the very essence of speeding up the process of connecting the whole country through national highways, the entire effort has been to see that funds are made available so that the work continues uninterruptedly. This is not pertaining to just one sector alone. It has affected most areas of the economy. And the general feeling is that the government is going to come up with a number of decisions to give a pep to most of them to get them started and back on the rails. We'll have to wait and see how this really pans out. But most of these decisions announced in small installments has so far been welcomed. There has not been any criticism of it.
And I believe the road is one area or the construction is one area which has a multiplier effect. I mean, it is not just the road is being constructed. There are a number of other sectors or there are a number of other economic activities. They got highlighted by this particular decision. How do you see, especially if we talk about the employment opportunities in terms of when we talk about more and more road construction?
I think the employment opportunities in this sector are quite phenomenal. And the kind of roads that are being constructed in the country's interior, there's no doubt it provides employment. But then if your handout to them is not on time, I think it creates problems. So connectivity by road, as you said, has several inputs, several advantages to it. Apart from just providing employment, it connects place A to place B. And by that, I think your general business activity also improves. And at the end of the day, it does give a very different approach to the whole area of development. So I think it's a big developmental fillip. And if that gets affected, it's a problem for the people, especially the poor.
And sir, since this entire decision is going to promote Bharatmala project where the investment is something around 5.35 lakh crore and government alone is not in a position to fund the entire money. They need support from the private investor. So how do you think that this is going to help more and more private investor as well as the foreign investor to come into this area?
I think the private investors have already started showing interest. I mean, they had shown interest in the past, but in between there has been a lagging of interest because of various issues. I don't know how far the foreign investor is really interested in coming to India at this juncture. But I think if the economy does pick up in the next 6 months to a year, as expected now with all these new measures being taken to pep up the economy in terms of providing employment, pepping up developmental endeavors, setting up of industries and so on and so forth, I think the foreigners will look towards India. Unfortunately, we had a big opportunity when people who had invested, set up factories in China were moving out because of problems. And at that time, it was widely felt the situation in India was not as bad as it is today. It was widely felt that they should look towards India and India should make an effort to get them to India. But at the end of the day, I think some more decision needs to be taken in quick time so that the economy really gets a pep and we are not looking down at it that, we've reached a stage where probably coming out of this may take a while longer.
So you mean acceleration of reform activities so that we can attract more and more these companies who want to shift from China to various other parts of the world and they are going to the various other countries, they should come to India. The second major decision was about the partial credit guarantee fund for the non-banking financial companies and the housing financial companies. How do you see this decision?
I think this was long overdue and many experts feel that this should have been done much more. And they also say in the same breath that this is just the beginning. I think if they are doing this, then there are other decisions that they need to take quickly to give a fillip to the economy. Yes, I think what has happened at a time when the economy was looking down, hopefully this will give a fillip to the present system. And let's hope further decisions which are in the pipeline would also come in quick time so that it really helps the economy in concerted kind of way.
So NBFCs are critical for boosting the consumption demand, because whenever we talk about slowdown in economy, we need to focus on investment as well as on the consumption demand, how to encourage both of them. And I believe that NBFC decision is going to certainly help the consumption demand to pick up. The other decision was about the amendment in the Aircraft Act of 1934. What is the significance, and especially when the amount of penalty has been increased from rupees 10 lakh to 1 crore, and all the agencies involved into air navigations have been included in this particular, or have been brought under the ambit of this act? How this is going to change the concept of safety in the air travel?
Well, I think there will be greater emphasis on this entire issue of safety. Of late, there have been an element of concern as far as air safety is concerned, more so with the Indian aviation industry. We have seen at least one major company just pack up overnight, and its repercussions have not been as severe as one expected it to be felt. Fortunately, the others in the airline business are doing reasonably well for themselves. So hopefully, I think with a greater effort in this entire area, we've had the Aircraft Act in 1934, and from 1934 to 2019, it hasn't even been looked at once. So this is long overdue, and I think very many more steps would be required to pep up this industry, and I hope the government will not waste time but move ahead in a very systematic and coordinated manner.
So it's almost 85 years. I mean, some amendments has taken place, some amendments
but very
have
negligible.
Taken place. Very negligible
Very
one.
negligible.
And safety and security, they are very, very important for the air traffic, because in aviation business, either it is 0 or 100. There is nothing called 30, 40, 20 or 10. There should be absolute 100 or 0.
I agree with you 200%, but let's not forget that there is still some lingering doubts about a particular airline using a particular kind of engine fitted in an Airbus passenger aircraft. And at least in 2 instances, this particular engine has led to a major crash where there were no survivors. And the DGCA, as the governing body about aviation, did ground the aircraft, some of these aircraft having this particular engine, Pratt & Whitney. But somehow the airline has managed to get permission to fly them. Now, again, these problems are surfacing. But I only hope that the DGCA will be more firm and we don't have a disaster on our hands.
Now, coming to another decision, which is about changing or making amendment in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. And there are 2 key provisions which have been brought under the amendment. One is about the ring fencing the liabilities of the new promoter, and the other one is about the home loan buyers. What is happening that just one buyer is going to the court and filing a dispute against the builder, and that disrupts the entire legal proceeding. Now, the number has been fixed. I mean, it should be 100 or 10% of the total home loan buyers. So how these changes are going to make IBC more relevant in the present scenario?
Listen, at least over the last 6 months, I have not seen any enthusiasm among people to really look at this sector. Liquidity is a big problem for most ordinary and middle class people. And I don't see them, at this point of time as being very enthusiastic in really looking at this sector. Because they still think the sector, the way it was going at one point of time and this huge slump that has come into it, they don't find it very encouraging. So I think a lot more really needs to be done to really get this sector into a mode where there is greater enthusiasm in it. If you go to Bombay and some other states in this country, there are housing units which have been built 2-3 years ago and there are absolutely no buyers. It is just lying idle. So how do you create interest and how do you ensure that there is money in the people's pocket? Therefore, I think from what economists say, he said money has to be generated in the hands of the people so that they can think of terms of investment. Right now, the situation is a hand-to-mouth existence, and in that situation, what are they really going to do about it? So I think housing is a very, very important sector. It's basic building infrastructure, being able to give an opportunity to people, to own their houses. So I think, yes, it's a very critical activity which boosts several other sectors of the economy. It is not just one standalone sector.
In fact, the two decisions, one in the partial credit guarantee fund for NBFC and Housing Finance Company, and the second one changes in the IBC, they are really going to support the real estate sector in a bigger way.
But do you really think this is the kind of a fillip they were expecting for long, as most experts are saying, and a lot more needs to be done?
I mean, it can't be said that that's sufficient for everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, we need more and more steps. But the best thing is that something is happening. We already have a window for uncompleted project where the 70-80% projects have already been completed, and there is a fund mechanism for the last mile kind of completion kind of thing. Something is happening, but of course lot more needs to be done. At least something is happening. That is important. The other is related with the Delhi, that's the Delhi Metro. The funding pattern for the fourth phase has been changed. Now government will contribute more. How do you see this decision?
You know, this is one sector in Delhi where transportation has improved leaps and bounds compared to what it was a quarter of a century ago. And I must give them credit, even though Delhi Metro has been maintaining the time schedule. But there have been delays because of, call it red tape, call it what you will, in going ahead with various other sectors which they have drawn up. In this case, I think they are connecting sectors where connectivity hardly exists in the real sense. And therefore, it is a real boon. It will take another 2-3 years, but the connectivity within the national capital at this juncture, thanks to the metro, is quite phenomenal. To have a footfall of 5.5 to 6 lakh people on the metro daily is not a joke by any stretch of imagination. But I would also say that the Railway Board, in its wisdom, went in for broad gauge railway rather than meter gauge, where the metro is mostly in meter gauge in most countries all over the world, including England. But broad gauge has helped them in giving them a greater advantage that you carry more passengers, and these are wider trains, and it's very convenient. And prices, ticketing wise also, we are highly competitive compared to some of our neighbors, including Singapore. So I think, yes, it's a big step forward. The connectivity by itself has been quite phenomenal.
Two more decisions, they are mostly in terms of memorandum kind of thing. One was with the Japan on the energy, and one with the Brazil, I believe, on the social security issue. How do you see these two decisions?
I think with Brazil, India has agreements of this kind about social security with about 18 countries. And their own reasoning has been that this has been a great boon to the people who have gone there to work, and therefore they don't have a double deduction, which helps them to a great extent. In terms of actual numbers, they are not much. There are 4,700 in Brazil, Indians, and about 1,000 odd Brazilians in India. In ways, given the economy and other aspects, yes, paying double of what you would normally pay, I think this has come as a great net of help to them, and they don't find themselves at a disadvantage. I think this is a very good step in the right direction, and the government has said that it will go ahead with such an arrangement with as many countries as possible.
And the second decision about this MOC, that's a Memorandum of Cooperation with Japan in the energy sector. How do you see that?
I think it's a big step. This should have been taken a long time back. We need to save energy. Our energy should be such that it is not polluting the environment. And I think the steps that they have taken, especially in the memorandum which says the Japanese are going to cooperate with India in a manner to ensure that you have energy with less pollutants really, spoiling the general environment. I think it's a big achievement, and the Japanese are very good in this because their own networks in Japan are very fuel efficient.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on Union Cabinet decisions. The participants were T.R. Ramachandran, political analyst, and Shishir Sinha, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You can also follow us on the News on AIR app. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.